Most residence permit applications don't fail on the dramatic stuff. They fail on one of 5 requirements people underestimate. Here's the 2026 version of all 5. Picture the moment the decision letter arrives and it's a yes, you have your residence permit. You can take the job, enroll the kids, breathe out. You're building your life in Austria. Everything standing between you and that moment comes down to a handful of general requirements. Not mysterious, not impossible, just 5 boxes you need to tick and know how to prove. Hi, I'm Patrick. I work in Austrian immigration as a lawyer every day, and I've walked a lot of people to exactly that ladder. Let's make these 5 steps simple. Quick but important, if you did your research a year or maybe 2 years ago, some of your numbers are already out of date. Austria adjusts the key financial figures every January, and 2026 is no exception. They went up again. So this is the refreshed current version. One caveat before we start, these are the general requirements that run across most permit types. Your specific permit, work, study, family, private means can add its own conditions. And the application process itself, that's its own video that I will link below once it is done. Here's the map. 5 requirements. 1. Language. 2. Health insurance. 3. Housing. 4. Financial stability. 5. A clean criminal record. Miss any one of those and the whole application stalls. So let's take them one at a time. Number 1, German. And here's the myth to kill right away. You do not need to be fluent to move here. For many residence titles, the starting bar is A1, the most basic level. That's order a coffee, introduce yourself, fill in a simple form, German. Depending on the permit, you may even need to show it before you arrive. But the good news, you don't have to prove it in one specific way. Austria accepts a range of recognized certificates. The big standardized exams from bodies like the OEF, the OSD, Goethe Institutes, or TELC all work as substitutes. And there are exemptions, for example, for children or in certain hardship or medical situations. There are also other documents that you may be able to present as substitute for a dedicated A1 diploma. From then on, it's a staircase, not a one-time hurdle. A1 to get started, higher levels A2, then B1 come later when you renew or apply for long-term residence. So the pressure at the beginning is generally lower than people fear. The mistake I see in practice? People panic about fluency and delay their whole move. Don't. Start with A1, keep a recognized certificate on file, and build from there. Requirement number 2, health insurance. And this one trips up more people than any other because of a single word. All risks. Austria wants proof that you have insurance that is valid in Austria and covers all risks, comparable to the Austrian public system. Full stop. Here's the trap. A travel insurance policy or a cheap short-term visa insurance usually does not qualify. They cap out, they exclude things, they're built for tourists, not for someone intending to live here. Submitting one of those is a classic way to get a request for improvement, or maybe, if you cannot resolve it, even a rejection. There are 2 clean paths. If you'll be employed in Austria, you're generally covered by the statutory public health insurance system through your job. You'll get the e-card, and that's the gold standard. If you're not yet in that system, say you're self-employed, retired, or joining family, you'll need comprehensive private policies that generally meet the all-risk standard, and they have to be valid here, of course. So the bottom line, don't improvise this with a holiday policy. Get coverage built for residents. Requirement number 3, a proper place to live. The legal phrase is locally customary accommodation, meaning a home that's considered normal and adequate for a comparable household in that area. In plain terms, a real documented place, big enough for your family. Not a couch, not an overcrowded room. 2 things matter here. First, proof. Typically a signed lease, plus your house registration slip, the so-called Meldebestätigung, once you're registered at the address. Second, size relative to your family. A studio apartment might be fine for 1 person and maybe a red flag for a family of 4. The accommodation has to actually fit the people who live in it. So line up a lease you can document and make sure the space matches your household. This is very fixable, but only if you plan it before you apply, not after. Number 4, money. And this is where you want the actual 2026 math, so stay with me. Austria wants proof of a stable financial situation, enough that you won't need to lean on social assistance. And enough isn't a vibe. It's pinned to fixed reference rates that rise with your family. For 2026, the monthly figures are: a single person needs 1,308.39 euros, a married couple in the same household 2,064.12, and for each child you would add 201.88 euros. Now the part almost everyone gets wrong, your rent. You add your rent on top of those minimums. But first, you subtract a fixed allowance called the Freie Station, which for 2026 is 386.43 euros. Think of it as the state saying, we assume some housing costs are already baked in, so only the rent above this amount counts against you. Now with all of these numbers, let's run a real family. Let's say a married couple, 2 kids, paying approximately 1,750 euros a month in rent. So the couple, as I said, they need to prove 2,064.12. 2 children add another 403.76 euros. Subtotal would be 2,406.88. Then if you consider rent minus the Freie Station, so 1,750 minus 386.43 would be 1,363.57. So the total required to prove that you're financially stable per month would be 3,831.45 euros. So that family needs to show roughly 3,831.5 net every month reliably. So for a year, 12 times the 3,831 net, nearly 46,000 euros. One pro tip, if your salary is paid 14 times a year, the Austrian 13 and 14 salaries, you convert to a monthly average by multiplying your net by 14 and dividing it by 12. That averaging usually works in your favor, so run your real numbers. And what does not count? Benefits you'd only receive because you got the permit. Social assistance, for instance. The income has to stand on its own. But Austria would also consider if you had significant savings, if you can prove where that money is coming from. So what you maybe not making per month is something that you can substitute by savings. Number 5, a clean criminal record. Austria will look at whether you pose a risk to public order and safety, and serious convictions can put a permit out of reach. For most applicants, this is a non-issue, but you do have to prove it with an official police clearance from where you've lived. If you're coming from the US, for instance, the authorities will expect a recent FBI criminal records clearance. The federal level document, not just a local check. The practical point. These documents take time to obtain and prepare, so start early. A clean record you can't yet document is a delay you don't need in your application process. So again, you have 5 requirements. Language, health insurance, housing, finances, and clean criminal record. None of them are exotic. All of them are provable if you prepare in the right order. And that's really the whole message that I try to get across. The people who get to that yes letter aren't the ones with the perfect life on paper. They're the ones who understood the requirements early and lined up the proof calmly, one box at a time. I've made deeper videos on the different residence permit routes for students, people moving for work or to join a partner or their family members, and I'll link them right here. Start with whichever one you're interested in the most. And because every situation is different, the smartest first step is a real conversation about yours. That's what I do. I sit down with you, map your specific path, and I'm there with you, including at the authority appointments, not a forum, not a hotline, someone in your corner who's walked this many times. If you're serious about making Austria home, reach out. The link's in the description. Let's get you to that yes letter. Have a great day, and I look forward to discussing this with you in more detail. Bye.